Have you wanted to know where your chicken comes from at the grocery store? Where did they live? What did they eat? Are they well cared for? We were asking these same questions when we began raising our own meat birds. In today's video, we'll show you how we've taken our birds from chick to table and what's involved in the harvest and processing of your meat birds. We do our best not to waste any of the animal, so you'll get to see the various ways they help sustain the rest of our little farm as well. Growing our own pasture-raised organic birds has helped us appreciate where our food comes from and how we can better steward them as a family. Whether you have your own birds or not, come see what happens behind the scenes to bring your birds to your plate, and let's go make it homemade. We purchased jumbo Cornish cross chicks from McMurray Hatchery, and we've been raising them in a chicken tractor so that they can be pasture raised without becoming too lean and not producing enough meat. When you harvest between 8 and 10 weeks old, the birds are at the peak of their health, which is the best for them and for you. We've kept the rest of the flock around the corner while we do the first part, which is of course quickly and humanely killing the bird. Let the blood run out and you'll be ready to begin. I'll give a quick tour of our setup while we wait for this to happen. We use a stainless steel restraining cone, and once the bird is dead, we allow the blood to drain below. For the scalding process, we use a turkey fryer setup. Next, the bird will go to the plucker, and this is essentially a rotating drum that gets connected to the hose where water pours into it, and these stiff rubber tabs pull the feathers out for us.
From the plucker, they'll go to our processing station. We've got 2 buckets for our discard for the organs that we're not going to keep. We've got our table to gut them and get them all cleaned up. We'll put the insides that we're keeping in these little tubs, and then after that, they'll sit on ice in the cooler before I take them inside to be vacuum sealed and stored in the freezer for later eating. The first step after killing the chicken is to scald it, and you want your water to be between 130 and 170 degrees Fahrenheit. What this does is it loosens up the follicles around the feather, which makes it a lot easier to have the plucker get the feathers off. So we'll hold on to the feet, dunk them in just a few seconds, not too long. And one of the easiest ways to tell if it's ready or not is to tug on the primary wing feathers or also the tail feathers. So you can see they didn't quite come out, which means we need a little bit longer.
You'll need to make sure the water's already turned on and the machine is running before adding in your bird. We'd recommend not adding more than 1 or 2 birds at a time just to make sure they stay intact during the process.
A bonus tip that we've discovered for ourselves is having a large colander or strainer underneath the plucker, because it has this little outlet pipe for the water to drain out, but that's also where the feathers come out. And by collecting them in a strainer, you collect the feathers and let the water drain out, which helps you with your cleanup afterwards. So while this machine does help get the feathers off, it is important that you don't leave the bird in too long because it can tear your bird apart. So you want to take them out as soon as the feathers are all off. So it's not 100% effective every time, but nonetheless, it still reduces the work that we have to put in significantly. So I'm not complaining about only having to remove a couple feathers here and there instead of plucking the entire bird.
I start by getting the feet off. You just pull this joint back and you cut in the in-between spot and your feet will come right off. So you're cutting between the joint. Then I go to the neck, I cut that skin down, so I get the skin from around the neck, and the esophagus, the trachea, and the crop are all right here. You can pull that out. Nice. At the top, you can give it a little spin. Off comes the neck into the pig bucket. You'll flip your bird over and you'll cut in between the vent and the breastbone, kind of here. Pull up that skin, have your knife backwards so you don't cut into any of your organs. This is kind of skin, we're still not into the abdominal cavity yet. Just peel it back, you'll pinch it, you'll cut in, and now you can see you're in the abdominal cavity. So now I like to try to just separate it with my hands and not use my knife, so I don't want to puncture anything. You'll go in with your hand and you'll loosen up some of the fascia and the connections that are holding everything together and into the wall. still want to be careful that you don't bust any organs. Then you can kind of grab it and gently pull out. You want to make sure you don't bust your gall sac and get bile all over your meat. We're going to save our liver and the heart, and all this is going to go to the pigs. So I kind of put my hand here towards the vent. There's your organs. Part of your oil gland. We got most of it off when we cut out from around our vent, but I always make sure to get the rest of that out. There you go. Your lungs down in here, so you have to break up this fascia, come from the outside, and you scoop under till you hit the middle of the breastbone, and then you pull out your lungs. 1, 2.
Whenever we're processing our birds, we want to try to be as low waste as possible. In this case, we're keeping a little bit of the organ meat for us, like we did with the liver and the heart. We've got some little containers on the ice inside the cooler to keep those cold, especially since it's for us. And then we've got the rest of the offal in these buckets. We're going to give this to our pigs. And we've got the feet inside this bucket here, and we save that as a raw treat for our dog. Now that we've processed our chicken, it's time to get them ready for storage. One of my favorite ways to store meat in general, but especially these chickens that we've just processed, is by using a vacuum sealer. This is the Food Saver brand. We found that it's simple, it's effective, and because we're able to get large rolls of the freezer bags, we can cut them to size, and just like I've done here, I've sealed it on one end so that I'm ready to put the bird in the other.
After it's done, it's time for me to weigh it, date it, and put it in the freezer. We hope this video helped you understand more of what goes into the chicken on your plate. We'll see you next time on Homemade.